by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family, and welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Our address is 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. Thanking the Creator of heaven and earth once again for life, food, clothing, and shelter, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And I'm also giving glory to the Most High God for all things and everything, waking us up this morning, and for giving us the knowledge that we now have.
You froze, Chief.
Giving you the knowledge that we all have.
You just unfroze.
So we thank the Creator once again, and I pray that the Most High God will continue to be with us all and guide and protect us. Hallelujah. Giving due respect to the leadership of our congregation, even Nasik, or Nasik, Jerry L. Ben Saskar, and giving due respect to him for all that he does, and for all the brothers and sisters who are listening online. I pray that the Most High God be with you all and protect you all and keep you. Also, sending out our condolences, or sending out my condolences to the family of Chief Eleazar and Levy, who passed away in this past week. So I pray that the Most High God be with his widow, Princess Naomi, and be with his children, and be with all his grandchildren and all his family who are affected by this loss. Once again, giving glory to the Most High God, and we're going to move straight ahead, and I'm going to pass it over to one of my teachers and my mentor, Ibn Nasik, Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, and in spite of things, events that happen. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. Due respects on the platform and the spiritual leader, Chief Prince Jerry L. Ben Saskar, to the host, Chief Bell, to the Prince's Chief, the Rabbinate, the Kohanim, Mourning, brothers and sisters, greet you all in the time of forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and an early Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to say Adonai Septati Takufi Yagichi Ratheaka. Oh Lord, down my lips, and my mouth should declare thy praise. Also, in light of my condolences to the family of the late Chief Eleazar, part of this portion, pretty much is in a slight dedication towards the memory of Chief Eleazar. For those that don't know him, he's an exponent of BINAH Zakim, chief from BINAH Zakim. Also, that is actual in the day of BINAH Zakim, when we had several different congregations, was to be over everybody that came from the Caribbean countries and the Isthmus of Panama. So he was supposed to be the spokesperson and the go-to guy over all the other princes, chiefs that came from the Caribbean area. So he was a man of distinguished abilities, and he was definitely a soldier and a warrior, and a warrior for this way of life of the God Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So part of this thing would be also that he made transition at the time of this particular sigil, which was Vayechi, and he lived. And as like the famous portion of patriarch Jacob, who dies in this sidra. And usually when we read about, and like we have Kaya Sarah, and we know Sarah died. We know that in Vayechi, Jacob, he died. So he said, well, what is the legacy? And so and reflecting on and identifying and relating some of the things of the patriarchs, hopefully we could learn some things. And also, those family members that of his that might have to look at this will reflect on some of the teachings that their father left behind, and his dedication. So that being said, I'd like to go back over a few things in YAH, which I went kind of swiftly through, and I know we had a slight glitch in the production for a moment last time, but some things are beyond our control. But in YAH, when Yehudah made his approach, and then Joseph identified himself, one of the things he used, 3 areas of trying to prove himself to be that guy Joseph. One, he's speaking to him without an interpreter for the first time in the language of their language, the Holy Tongue. 2, he mentions a name that was never mentioned in both of the encounters that came. The guy Joseph, he's going under an alias name in Egypt. And 3, some would say he even exposed himself so far to show that he's part of the covenant. So that showed himself much more that I'm just that vulnerable to you. And the question he would ask is my father alive? Showing a relationship to his father more so than to his brothers. That Yehudah took the focus off of Benjamin. He took a focus on, the crime. He put the focus on his father, and Joseph made a statement that is my father. Is he still alive? I'm concerned about that. Yehudah talking about how his father might die, and Joseph wanted to know if my father's still alive, for sure. And it seemed like that's something he should already know from the beginning. But as we go further into it, I'd like to also bring about the introduction of Jacob to Pharaoh, because as we get ready to go into Vayechi, one of the most interesting things when we get into Vayechi is that we finish off with the blessings of the 12 tribes of Israel. And some might appear that not to be so much of a blessing. But when I look at the area of the introduction of Pharaoh, Jacob was into more of blessing himself, because when we go into the 47th chapter Genesis, and I forgot to relate to people, that's also where I'll be coming from. The chapter of Vayechi, and he lived. That comes from 47th chapter, 28th verse, and goes to the end of the 50th chapter, the 26th verse. That would be actually this portion of Genesis that would be read, and that was read just past Shabbat. And also that the Haftorah would be 1 Kings, 2nd chapter, 1st verse to the 12th verse. And the psalm I'll be reading and speaking on today would be Psalm 41. That would go along with that, to see some correlation with that as well. So what's interesting is that in the 47th chapter of the last week's, the portion before in YAH, and picking it up from the let me see, let me pick it up from this, the 7th verse of the 47th chapter. And it says, and Joseph brought in Jacob his father and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how many are the days of the years of thy life? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers, and the days of their sojourning. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Now, what's interesting is we're going to find, you know, at the end of the chapter, because I'm going to be moving kind of skimming through, but you're going to say, well, how did Jacob bless Pharaoh when he's coming down there because of the famine in the land where he comes from? That's something to consider. What blessing did he really bless him, Pharaoh? And then he blessed Pharaoh on meeting him before Pharaoh even asked him a question. What question is that to ask a man that, you know, that's supposed to be running your kingdom, his father, concerning how old is he? That don't seem to be a question that you would focus on asking a person that you have respect for, the man that you look at to as a father figure to you, and he's the son of the man that you're addressing. So then after Jacob, you know, there's something that Pharaoh must have seen in Jacob from his appearance and brought it out. You could use much more discussion amongst your, you know, your teachers and colleagues and stuff of that nature. But when we look even further into this, then Jacob said about his troubles. Now we know about Jacob's troubles. We know he struggled from the womb. We know, you know, because when you had twins in the same sack, you know, survival was very slim. Then you have, after that, you know, the bout where, you know, he had wound up being pursued, and the brother wanted to kill him. So he had to go and flee and flee the land of Israel into the land of his grandfather, Abraham, where he was originally from, and to get a wife. We know he stayed 20 years in Padamaran, and we know that it was rough 20 years that he's there. Then he had to flee from Padamaran, from his father-in-law. Then after that, he comes there, and then now he worried about his brother still having, you know, a grudge against him and wanting to kill him. But so he goes before that and sits on the other side for whatever he went to get on the other side of the brook, and contend with a wrestle with an angel to the breaking of the dawn that night. And then he says, I won't let him go. When the angel asks to be let go, I won't let you go unless you bless him. So Jacob was about blessings all the time. The blessing he got from his father, you know, and then he was looking for a blessing in this encounter. Now, who will bless somebody, or why would you take a blessing from somebody you don't know? And how we know it'd be worth a true blessing? And when the angel asked the name, said, why would you bless somebody if you ain't sure? Or it's just a thing of confirmation. So those are some things to consider. And then he get wounded in that battle. Then he confront Esau. The next episode was he had a daughter get raped. Next episode, his sons destroy a whole city. Next episode, his sons sold, you know, his son Joseph. Next episode, he's mourning for 22 years. And mind you, Isaac is still alive at this time when Joseph is actually wound up being sold. Isaac was alive. And then, because we know Joseph was separated from his family for 22 years. So we know that when Jacob stands before Pharaoh, he says, as we just read, 133 years. So it had been, you know, 10 years that Isaac was alive, that Joseph was already missing, and Jacob going through this mourning. And you would say, well, shouldn't have been a talk between those two? You know, father and son about a grandson. Those are some things that just to ponder as we go through this here particular portion of Genesis. You know, and that's what makes Genesis so unique, is because it's not a bunch of laws, but it's a bunch of family issues and moral issues that can be discussed still. And then when we go further and look further into that, then he sends the sons down to Egypt to get food. After Joseph was sold. All right. Then he come back. Simeon's not with them. He got to send Benjamin. So now that's troubling him. Then after the food has been spent, then he's forced to send Benjamin, down to Egypt and worrying about him. Then finally, he gets the shocking revelation and news that his son is alive after 22 years. So that was a tumultuous, emotional ride for our father Jacob. The roller coaster ride of up and down and twists and turns. So when you imagine a man that went through all that, at that period of time, it's phenomenal. And then he's able to bless Pharaoh before and after. So he blessed Pharaoh twice. So now we got to say, well, what was true blessing? And then we can figure it out as we go further into the portion of Vayechi. Now, one of the things is that we read that Joseph, wind up buying up the Egyptian servants and stuff like that there, where they come up to the plan to sell themselves because of the food and the famine in the land. All right. And, they gave up everything they had. They started off with, with money, then the cattle, then they have nothing else but their bodies. And they came with the suggestion, and they say, in the 47th chapter, as we go through that, and it's important to keep this in mind. It says, 47th chapter, I pick it up from the 18th verse. It says, and when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide from my Lord how that our money is all spent, and the herd of cattle are my Lord's. There is naught left in the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore should we die? Wherefore thy eyes, before thy eyes, both we and our land, buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be bondsmen unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land be not desolate. So now this is something that to consider. If it's the second year of the famine, it's also the time that Jacob comes in and bless Pharaoh 2 times, when you first meet him and afterwards. And the people already know it's supposed to be 7 years of famine. Why is it now that Joseph will sell you seed if it's not going to be any produce coming up? Like if it's going to be a hiatus in between the 7 years of famine. So that's something to discuss further, because you got 2 years already into the famine, and yet he's selling them seeds. And then what's even more striking is that they came up with the idea, look, buy us in the land. That's all we got left. They submitted themselves as servants. It wasn't even Joseph's suggestion to put them into bondage unto Pharaoh. They came up with that suggestion on their own. They said, look, because we're just going to die if we don't do this. So let us be a servant. Take the land. And then Joseph wound up giving them a good deal, as we know as the rest of the story, and had to move and relocate in different lands, and he gave him a super deal. So if he gave him that super deal, then did the famine take a break for a moment after the 2 years? Because you don't plant unless you got potential of getting some kind of harvest. And then it would have been cruel for Joseph to give them that if it wasn't a prospect of them being able to do something. And they made a guarantee and a covenant there. So, and he also made Pharaoh a lot more powerful. All right, so we're gonna go into the book of Vayechi, you know, and also Joseph never took the priest portion. He's married to the priest household too. So in Vayechi starts in 47th chapter, the 28th verse, and it said, and Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. And the time drew near that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, if now I have found favor in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me, and bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. But when I sleep with my fathers, thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, swear unto me. And he swore unto him, and Israel bowed down upon the bed's head. The reason I read that is because what's important is there's a couple of things that's striking. He called Joseph, he didn't call anybody else. Like, why didn't he call all the other sons? There wasn't hostage there. But, you know, there's some things that happened where he became just that important to the Egyptians. He called Joseph, who actually had the ability to make it happen without hindrance. And if Joseph had the ability to make it, make it happen without hindrance, you wonder, why didn't Joseph lead the land in the first place when he had power in the first 7 years? So there's a lot of questions that could be asked in reference to this. But one of the things is that if Joseph said, I would do that, then why make him swear? Because if I'm about to do what you say, and I said, okay, I'm gonna take care of that, then why I must swear to do that? You think, is it because of Pharaoh? That's a possibility. Or could it be that Joseph been separated from his father so long that I want his body near me? Let's read a little bit more and just find out, some of the things that we discussed in depth, because he wasn't satisfied with Joseph just saying, I'm going to do it. He said, I need you to swear in addition to you going to do it. So those are some things to look at and discuss. And one of the other areas that we like to look at, as he made that statement, it says in the 48th chapter, and it came to pass at these things, that one said to Joseph, behold, thy father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And one told Jacob and said, behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. And Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said unto me, behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a company of people, and will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. And now thy 2 sons, who were born unto thee in the land of Egypt, before I came unto thee in Egypt, before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine, Ephraim and Manasseh, even as Reuben and Simeon shall be mine. And thy issue that thou shalt begettest after them shall be thine. They shall be called after the name of their brothers in their inheritance. And as for me, when I came from Padam, Rachel died unto me in the land of Canaan in the way, when there was still some way to come unto Ephrath. And I buried her there in the way to Ephrath, the same as Bethlehem. And Israel beheld Joseph's sons and said, who are these? And Joseph said unto him, his father, they are my sons, whom God has given me here. And he said, bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them. So Jacob wanted to still go out with a blessing. He wanted to bless people. So here's a man that had the struggle for blessings, and yet he's freely willing to give up a lot of blessings. And he wanted to bless these boys. And it said, but one of the things I want to bring on the 10th verse says, now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, and that he could not see. They use the word heavy, and he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them. Similar to his saga when he came into his father Isaac. But what I like to bring out, in reference to that in this area is that when Jacob himself troubled Joseph, he brings up the thing about, I'm asking you to do something for me that I didn't do for your mother. Your mother died, and I buried her on the way. No special tomb, no special place. Yet Leah is buried in the cave of Machpelah. Your mother is buried on the way. I didn't even take a few more miles, to Ephrat, and also a little bit further. So basically, what they considered tomb of Rachel by the wayside, the roadside near Bethlehem. It's only about maybe 3/4 miles away from Ephrat. And then also the cave of Machpelah is about a little bit further than that, maybe a mile or so further than that. So it seemed that he could have, if he really focused on it, bring it that far. There's always a lot of discussions why he just buried her there instead of try to carry her further into the major city, but on the side of a road. So there's a lot of commentaries on it, but I like to leave that open for discussion in reference to that, because that's the same road they take going to Babylon, that same exact road. So when the children of Israel is already being taken into captivity, the southern kingdom, that is, and then Nebuchadnezzar, and the temple's being destroyed. And that's the route they're taking on that road. So that's something to consider on the way there as we discuss that. But also the thing is that he's willing to bless these two boys and make them on the same level as Reuben and Simeon, equal, on that. So he brings out about Joseph's mother, and he brings out about, I didn't do that for her, but I'm looking for you to do this for me. All right. And what's interesting is that now he focused on blessing the grandchildren. And we know we find also that all the patriarchs said something different, and it doubled up with the next patriarch. Abraham's the first guy we read about in scriptures that was considered an old man. The word Zakrin. Now I'm sure there's other people, but I'm saying he's the first one considered to be an old man. Isaac is not only became an old man, but he also the first man that had dim eyesight, poor eyesight. You don't read that prior to anybody in scripture having poor eyesight. All right, until you mention Isaac. Then later, Jacob not only become an old guy, not only have poor eyesight, but now he got a new thing. He became sick. So it's something to consider. I'm Asian. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be, and I'm sick. And they say he strengthened himself. So he's the first guy we read about that actually becomes sick in scripture in that sense. All right, when he get ready to bless him. So now you got to say, well, I need to wonder about his mentality as we go further. All right, and Israel said to Joseph in the 11th verse, I had not thought to see thy face And lo, God had let me see that seed also. All right. So now he's in Egypt for 17 years. These kids was born before, the famine. So during the years of plenty. So you figure these kids could be anywhere from, in their low 20s, in their low 20s they could be, these kids here, because they was born before the famine. And this is 17 years later. So they just ain't no little guys. And then you notice how the respect is shown to the father. All right. And he had him between the knees. And then we know that the blessing, he put Manasseh to the right hand of his father, and he put Ephraim to the left hand of his father. And in the 15th verse of that same chapter, I just want to bring out a couple of things here. And he blessed Joseph, saying, and said, the God before whom my father Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God whom had been my shepherd all my life long unto this day, the angel who had redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named in them, and the name of my father Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw his father was laying his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, and it to please him, because he had crossed his hand, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. And he also shall become a people. All right. And he shall also should be great. Howbeit, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, by thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said unto Joseph, behold, I died, but God will be with you, and bring you back unto the land of your fathers. Moreover, I had given to you thee one portion above the brothers, which I took with my which I took out of the hand of the Amorites with my sword and with my bow. I spoke more when I did the Sidra itself, but one of the things I like to bring out and point out this thing here is that why, questions to discuss further. Why is it that, why not bless the children, your children, right, in the name of, by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Why say, make them like Ephraim and Manasseh, in that area there, when it seemed like it would be about the patriarchs. But he said, I want the rest of the children of Israel, when everybody bless their children, bless them with, and make them like Ephraim and Manasseh. It's a tradition, a rabbinic tradition, that on before you say kiddush for the wine, that you mostly bless, your children, before you say the kiddush. If it's the boys, you make them say you want them to be like Ephraim and Manasseh. If it's females, he mentions the matriarchs in this order, be like Sarah, Rebecca, Raquel, and Leah, in that order. Raquel is actually the only one that's actually called the wife. Out of all the matriarchs, she's actually called the wife. So it's one of the things that we consider why the order, when he married Leah first. But that's also something to discuss. But one of the areas is that let's look at the meanings of the name. We know Joseph named his firstborn son Manasseh, to help him forget, the toil and everything of his father's house. And then yet he named his second son Ephraim. God made me fruitful in a strange land, a land of of his servitude, but it's still a strange land. He'd say he was fruitful in a strange land. So one question to discuss is, if I'm supposed to forget all the problems in my father's house, how do I name my firstborn son something about forgetting and call his name every day? That's something to think about. If I'm supposed to forget about all that stuff that happened back in the land of Canaan and my father's house, and I'm in home, and I'm in a new career, as I say, career change, then would I call the guy? Say, boy, come here every day? Or I say, Menashe. And then I'm fruitful in a land, in a strange land, a land that's not mine. Then I'm doing all right. But am I really all right? Because I'm in a place that I really don't really fit in and belong. There's a lot of discussion, and could be on that, but I don't have more, because of the names itself of these guys. And also that when we find, and those that we look into the Hebrew, when we talk about the blessings and everything like that, we talk about, and it uses the term, it uses the term in reference to it in the singular, and it says in you, still that's singular as well. And the word blessings in the singular. And that this is the first time you don't have sibling rivalry between brothers. Abraham had 2 sons. He had more than 2 sons, but basically, with the son Ishmael and Isaac, they had to separate them, and he got rid of the rest of the sons from him. You had Esau have 2 sons. They had sibling rivalry. Jacob had 12 sons, and you still have some sibling rivalry. The difference is also, as we get later on, I'm going ahead, I'm going to speed up just a little bit, is that with Jacob, or with Abraham, you have 1 son carrying the banner and tradition of his father. That was Isaac. Isaac had 1 son carrying the tradition and honor of his father. As we're going to get ready to close out later on in Vayechi, all Jacob's sons, including the ones he adopted, is carrying the tradition of the fathers. So Ephraim and Manasseh in Egypt, born to Joseph, is still following tradition of Abraham, of Isaac, and of his father. So those are some of the things I think about as we go on. Now I'm just going to fast forward, into I'm going to skip over about the portion above, and it's just looking at the 49th chapter. And 49th chapter is when and Jacob said, and Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together that I may tell you that which shall befall you and the end of days. Some of yourselves and ye sons of Jacob. All right, so now he called them for a specific purpose to tell them what's going to happen in the future, in the end time. So that's what he called them for, a specific purpose. But when we look further, in the first one he called, and I'm just going to read a few, the 4 of them, part of the 4, and that's it, not all 12, but then, and it said, Reuben, thou my firstborn, my might, and the first fruit of my strength, the excellence of dignity, and the excellence of power. Unstable as water, have not thou the excellency, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed. Then defiledst thou it. He went up to my couch. Now this is in the presence of all the other sons. 5, Simeon and Levi are brethren, weapons of violence, their kinship. Let my soul not come unto their counsel, unto their assembly let my glory not be united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they hogged oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them through Israel. Then it says, Judah, thee shall thy brethren praise. Thy hand shall be upon the neck of thy enemies. Thy father's son shall bow down to thee. All right, we're going to stop right there. And I'm going to just go in the last part, the 10th verse. It says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, as long as man can come to Shiloh. All right, and unto him shall the obedience of the people be. All right, so I'm just gonna skip that, and just focus on those 4 right there. Now we know Joseph got his blessing separate, and then he's gonna get another blessing later on, and he got a blessing for his children. But you say, well, Reuben don't seem like it's a blessing. It don't seem like he blessed them, at all. And Simeon, Levi, it seemed kind of rough, but Jacob cursed only the anger. And yet, if it's that bad, why would he spread it amongst all Israel? Sometimes you need a certain amount of righteous indignation. With Reuben, he bringing up something that happened, basically close to 40-something years ago. He's bringing up something about that time, almost 40 years ago. He's bringing this up like it was yesterday. With also with Shalom and Levi, he's bringing up something pretty much almost 40 years. So now, when we look at that, what we can gather from it is, one of the things that you could discuss it with your teachers, as I say, or most of the things I bring out, and see if you could bring out other viewpoints. One viewpoint is that when we look at it, Reuben, and then 40 years ago, Yaakov showing, I may be aged, I may be blind. My eyes ain't not as good as it used to be. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be. Not blind, but not as good as it used to be. And I may be a little sick, but I got a clear head. My mind is sharp. I'm not an old man that doteth. I have common sense recognition, and my memory goes back like if it was not just yesterday, today. So those are some of the things that's a takeaway, why he bring up that. And then one of the things I meant to mention about Reuben, when they talk about defile, his father's couch, and everything. And what we fail to realize that people could change. Reuben changed, and the thing was that when he even talked about kill my sons, if I'm bringing yours back, it said, well, why would he say that when he knows his father ain't gonna kill his sons, which is his grandsons? But it's to reflect on certain things. And that's why I always said for people to bring it out, because people just readily dismiss that Reuben is just a fool. But Jacob, who's the son of Isaac, and Isaac, who's the son of Abraham, Isaac could have said, wow, my father almost decided to kill me because God told him to. And I didn't hear a word when they say, don't touch the lad, don't hurt him. I didn't hear that. I'm on the altar, bound up, and my neck is out, willing to do whatever and obey my father to the very end. But that was a traumatic experience. You, Yaakov, was the son of that man. You know that automatically, since that was a traumatic experience, and your own brother, wanted to kill you, and yet, at the death of your father, he said, I'm a slave Jacob. Y'all buried him together. So, do you have faith in God? Could that be the issue? When he said, if I don't bring him back, then, say my own sons. When you know that all your people would die of starvation if we don't go and get food from Egypt. So you worried about one guy possibly not coming back when you had to really say, I'm gonna have faith in God. So those things, when we think about Reuben, it's not as bizarre. And you got to say, well, why would you say that? Do he want his sons to be killed? I'm sure he don't. He's the one that really tried to come up with the rules to save Joseph. So we just, say, well, he didn't follow through. He didn't get the credit on some things, but he's not the only one in history that didn't completely complete the job that he set out to do. He's not the only one, but I don't have time on this platform to cite different cases. But the thing is that we a lot of times we think of Reuben as just this guy that's gonna never change. We think of Simeon and Levi as these guys are just vile and hateful, hot-tempered. But if they didn't have no goodness, and then y'all go point out his good points, the beginning of strength and the excellency of dignity. You have that ability within you, but you tend not to tap into it. But you have that. So these are some of the things that, when we discuss different guys and episodes in the family of the patriarchs in Genesis, we got to look at all the other viewpoints, the family, influence, the ecology of the neighborhood and everything like that. So as I just go just a little bit further into this, longer than I expect to speak on, we read that after he blessed them and everything like that, he blessed all the children. And like I said, something may not seem like a blessing, but knowing where you're weak at, that's a blessing. Knowing how you can improve in your life. So that's one of the blessings. All right. Then it says, in all these, in the 49th chapter, 20th verse, and all these are the tribes of Israel, and this is it, that their father spoke unto them and blessed them. Everyone according to his blessing, he blessed them. All right. So you let them know that they all was blessed. Though we don't think it's a blessing, they all was blessed. And that's what we find there. All right. And then he goes on, he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people, bury me with my fathers in a cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in a cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham brought with the field from Ephron the Hittite for possession, a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife, and there they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah, the field and the cave that is therein. And then goes on and tell you that, at the end he said he gathered his feet unto the bed, and the spire and was gathered unto his people. He died right there in front of his children after he gave him the last wishes. The 50th chapter, which we're into, I'm going to speak on just a little bit. And Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept upon him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants and the physicians to embalm his father, and the physicians to embalm Israel. And 40 days were fulfilled for him. So are to fulfill the days of embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke unto the house of Pharaoh. All right, so we know the story right there. He wanted to bring his he told Pharaoh what he's supposed to do, bring his father's body back. But 40 days he was embalmed. The first person you read about in the scriptures of being embalmed, which is Father Jacob. And we find out that the Egyptians wept for him for 70 days. Now, you notice it didn't say the children of Israel wept for him at this time. I'm sure it was, but it focused on the bombing process and the weeping all together. Now, those that follow the tradition, I brought this out before in the Sidra, that you have a 7-day of sit and shiva, another 30 days, which is a lot lighter included within that. And then you go to 11 months of saying, Kaddish as well. We try to get over the individual, but the most 7 days is the most hardest. We know that when they went into the land of Egypt and took them back, to the land of Canaan, they took them back to the land. We know automatically that that's when once he entered into the land. And I'm just going to bring this out. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, And there they wailed with a very great and sore wailing, and he made a mourning for his father 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land of Canaan saw the mourning in the floor of a tide, they said, this is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. All right, so now he mourned for him 7 days right there. So why didn't choose the particular mourning of 7 days, setting Shiva outside the land? That's not home. One thing also too to think about, that Jacob knew exactly that when he went into Egypt, he would die in Egypt. He knew exactly the place where he was going to die. Abraham, on the other hand, as long as I'm in the land of Canaan, I figure I'm going to die in the land of Canaan. Isaac, no, I don't leave the land. I should die in the land of Canaan, somewhere in the land of Canaan. But Jacob knew that when he goes to see Joseph, he would never come back alive. God said his son would close his eyes. So he already knew that, going down there, that he would never return alive to the land of Canaan. Now that's something. That's something there. But just to point out, and one of the last things I like to bring out in here is that this part here about forgiveness, and I don't want to be remiss without bringing this out. And Joseph returned into Egypt, he and his brothers, and all that went with him to bury his father. After he had buried his father, and when Joseph's brothers saw their father were dead, he was dead from the beginning. Why did just now saying when they saw he was dead? All right, he was dead before he left. That's why they made the trip. They said, it may be that Joseph will hate us and will fully require us all the evil which we did unto him. And they sent a message unto Joseph, saying, thy father did command before he died, saying, so shall ye say unto Joseph, forgive, I pray thee now, the transgression of thy brethren and their sins, for that they did unto thee evil. All right, and now we pray thee, forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of thy father. All right. Now, what I want to point out, because I don't want to be remiss, because I really don't, most people don't focus on the tactics, the actual message that's being brought here. And I find it very, very profound, is that they saying it was the command of their father, not necessarily the idea. It was the command of their father, that's what they say, to ask for forgiveness. All right. Though we know, there was apologetic, but it was a command from Jacob to ask forgiveness, and then tell him to forgive, because Jacob can't forgive you for something that you did to somebody else. Forgiveness, when you forgive, you take a loss. So Jacob commanded them as an order to ask for it. Not necessary that Joseph going to grant it, but to ask for it. Now, we don't have no evidence of where that took place, but we don't have evidence of a lot of stuff that took place, just like when Judah stood before him in YAH. We don't read where, when he told Jacob, prior to YAH, that Joseph asked about certain things, detailed information. And Yehudah, when he stood before Joseph in YAH, he explained that same thing, and we didn't read it before. And Joseph could have said, I never said that. But he didn't, but he just kept quiet on that. We don't know what Jacob said, but one of the things I like to point out, and you could discuss it more, it ain't about the sale. Because people always ask about that Jacob knew about the sale of Joseph, that the brothers actually sold Joseph. And this is my viewpoint. And, we might have people with other different viewpoints on it. But I said, just my viewpoint on it, is that Jacob never, ever knew about the sale. He knew about the hatred. He knew about the dislike. That's why even in the second dream, he held and considered to say it, you know, but he knew about that. He was able to read his father-in-law's countenance when his sons of his father-in-law, which is supposed to be his brother-in-law, Laban's sons talked negative against him. And then he looked and seen the countenance of his father-in-law. And he said, he don't look the same towards me like he used to do before. And that's when God spoke to him. And that's when he met with his wives in the field. And that's when he tried to steal away. Joseph was able to read countenance in jail. That said, this is unique compared to other continents that people don't want to be there. Jacob knew his sons hated Joseph, and it was part of his fault. So he asked them, so this could have been possibly a true thing. It said, ask them to forgive for the evil, but the evil could have been only the evil of hating, and that's one of the things of hating. And you notice how it went like the message before, when they said Joseph, they sent the messages with Joseph coat, see if this is your son coat. All right. They sent a message also to Joseph, and then they came along with the messenger, and Joseph, and I like to end pretty much with this here in reference to it. And Joseph said unto them, fear not, for am I in the place of God? And as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore, fear ye not, I will sustain you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly unto them. All right. He still felt the way. He felt the way, but he took the high road. He said, I'm not God. Had he been God, would he did something else? Would it even got to that? And he said, the big picture, I'm seeing the bright side of what's going on. That on the bright side is that I'm not only saving your lives, I'm saving world lives. As the people in the world is dependent on this. Now, mind you, he gave them seed within the fifth, after 2 years of the famine. So why is it now I need to sustain you if the land is still producing? That's something to consider. And most viewpoints is that the famine stopped when Yaakov blessed Pharaoh, and then when Yaakov died, it came, it came back again. But hence this statement here. But like I said, up for discussion amongst your teachers, various teachers, they may have, I'm sure people have other various views and take on it. And it goes on to say, and Joseph dwelt in the land of Egypt, he and his father's house. And Joseph, lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation, and the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were born unto Joseph these. And then Joseph charged the people of Israel, that bring his bones out. So, and then he died. Now, before I go to Psalm, and I know I've spent a little time on it, but there's so many impact in this here, and Vayechi, and in closing out of Genesis, is that normally, Joseph himself, if he died at 110, because when they went to go bury their father, when they went to go to bury their father, Jacob, after he was in the land for 17 years, the Vayechi is also the gematria for 34, and also, 17 is like also the gematria for the word tov, which means good in Hebrew. When you translate, it means good. So Jacob really had 17 good years, in the land of Egypt. And he had 17 years when Joseph was with him. So Vayechi, 34 years of, he really enjoyed life, to the fullest. But when they went to take him to the land of Canaan and bury Jacob at 147, Joseph at that time is 56 years old. Reuben, the most he could have been is 63. The most Simeon could have been is 72. The most Levi could have been is 61. And the most Yehudah could have been 60. So you figure everybody is at least a half century, behind that, at least a half century or low 60s. Everybody is close to that same age bracket. So we're talking about right now, the oldest one being 63 at the time Jacob died. And then Joseph died at 110. And we got the age that Levi, the actual Levi for the head of the tribe of Levi, he died at 137. So you figure that, if he's only a few years older than Joseph at this time, then it's other people are still around. So Joseph died. There's a tradition that they say he died before the rest of his brothers. We don't know. He was dealing with the metropolis, and everybody else was dealing with the, more so the family life. And there's a lot of other lessons in there that we brought out. But one of the things, when you finish a book, they always say, Kazak, equals 8, which means be strong, let's make one another strong. And you say, well, when we close into the book of Genesis, we start off with the creation of man, and we end up with the death of man. So how you become strong when you end up with death as opposed to life? Because we start off good with the creation, and life being put into man, and life blossoming. And then we end the book of Genesis with death, Jacob's death, Joseph's death. And that's how we end it. And then the tradition is be strong, and let us make one another strong. Then most times, that's when it takes people to really get together their strength. When somebody makes a departure from this way of life, those that are left behind start to reflect more. So we're going to the book of Psalms, the 41st chapter, written by King David. There's a few verses there, I think about 15, 14. Yeah, 14 verses in the book of Psalm, the 41st chapter. And it's actually, what's unique about that is that this 41st chapter of Psalm closes the first book of Psalms. So we close in the book of Genesis, and we're going to read the 41st Psalm, which closes the first book of Psalms. So the 42nd chapter starts the second book of Psalms. And we know that half Torah was about David, and Jacob leaves blessing his children, and David leaves with Solomon, finish my unfinished business. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned when you make the correlation. One great is Jacob, finishing. And then also when we end on a note that Jacob had 12 sons that followed the family tradition. So that means right then and there that he did better than his predecessor as a patriarch in that sense, because all his sons changed to be righteous. And as we close that book, one of the things I like to point out before we go into this particular psalm is that they refer to themselves as the servants of the God of our father Jacob. So that means right in there, they changed. They said when they asked for forgiveness, they refer to themselves as God's servants, the same God that their father served. That show you the integrity and the change in a person's life. A lot of times we don't think of these guys as changing, but those 12 sons, they did what they did as a child, as youngsters. And as they grew up as more mature adults, they changed their lifestyle. And that should be also a life lessons for us, But if you got it, 41st chapter, we can start off there.
Hallelujah. We're in the book of Psalms, chapter 41, starting from verse 1. For the leader, a psalm of David. Happy is he that considereth the poor. Jehovah will deliver him in the day of evil. Hold right there. Now, first of all, David's writing this psalm. I mean, the Haftorah was with David, but the thing is that, a person that's contented to consider somebody that's less than you. All right. We're going to see some of the similarities of this in relation to the Sidra of Vayechi when we read it before. I read it just a moment ago. And it's just that a lot of times we think about ourselves.
But Joseph's job and a good leader job and a godly person job is not about themselves, it's about others. One time, again, and I said I was going to be easy with people to ask me this, because we have where I go at, when you say prayers, they say prayer for the sick. And when they say prayer for the sick, I tend to have this long list of names compared to everybody else that be in the place, in the congregation where I be at. And, a couple of people, asked, why you had the list so long? I said, well, I'm older. I'm 3, 4, 10, so I know a lot of older people, But then the guy asked me again, just to Shabbat this past, and in light of one of the brothers, one of the great brothers from BINAH Chief Elders are passing. And I said, I said I was going to be easy when people ask me that, but in light of things that happen, I said, I care about a lot of people. So that's why my list is so long. I care about a lot of people. So if your list is short, that means there's just that many people you don't consider or care about. So that's why my list is always long, and it could be a lot longer, but for the sake of consideration of the people that's in the place, it don't be that long. So I said, you need to think about that. He said, wow, you're right. I said, so there it is. So here it is that you got to consider other people if you're really godly and trying to make better in your life. But let's go a little bit further.
Verse 3, it reads, Yehovah preserve him and keep him alive. Let him be called happy in the land, and deliver not thou him unto the greed of his enemies. Yehovah support him upon the bed of illness. Mayest thou turn all his lying down in his sickness.
Okay, right there. Now, David, on the other hand, he had got a little ill. He got a little weak at one point in time. And it's bad to get weak when you got, people that's really don't have your well-being in mind. People started saying, oh man, I thought he was gonna leave here. He's still around. I hope he don't make it off the bed, and stuff of that nature. David, himself saying, I do good things for people. I have a good side. Now, when I do step out the line every now and then, that's not really me, but I know how to get back in line. But I do care about a lot of people other than myself, which was David. One of his things, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, and let my right hand forget his cunning. I'm a warrior. I'm right-handed. I need that to work good all the time. So he's considering other people other than themselves. But let's read a little bit further.
Verse 5, it reads, As for me, I said, O Yehovah, be gracious unto me, heal my soul, for I have sinned against thee.
Hold right there. You notice, he didn't say heal my body. He said heal my soul. And he said I sinned against him. So in other words, don't my body need fixing? If I'm laid up in the bed, I'm laid on the bed because I physically can't get up right away. I'm not really myself right away. We just read where Jacob had to strengthen himself when he was sick. Up on the bed, when Joseph came, said he strengthened himself. He said he went and got some extra something from somewhere, And so we said, it's nothing wrong with if I need a physician, but first I'm gonna go to the healer of healers, and then talk about you heal me spiritually first, and be, and it meets your approval that I'll be all right. So the thing is that when we look at a situation, a lot of times we just go to, the doctor and stuff like that, and don't consider that we need some spiritual healing as well. We need to ask God, to work with us as well. And David says, his sins. In other words, not that he's doing a whole lot of chaos, but he's saying, I'm in this condition for a reason, and they're not there on purpose, That's why I say, man, start, so when he talk about healing my soul, for I have sinned against thee. That means only when it comes to you right now, I did something wrong. Everybody else, I'm not messing with. I'm just not living up to everything you want me to live up to. And that's what people sometimes say, well, see, I tell you so-and-so's this and that and the other, but they might, not be living to everything God say, but they might not be, but by the same token, they're not necessarily doing anything wrong against another individual. All right, read a little bit.
Verse 6, mine enemies speak evil of me. When shall he die, and his name perish? And if one come to see me, he speaketh falsehood. His heart gathereth iniquity to itself. When he goeth abroad, he speaketh of it.
Hold on right there. Right, before we get to that first, David had some people around him that, they be talking about you, and they can see you, a little bit, ill, and they don't want you to recover. They talk negative about, about that. And David let know that I know people talk about me like that. Sometimes people misunderstand certain individuals because they might say, I'm gonna isolate myself from certain issues. And when you isolate yourself from certain issues, if you used to hang out with the guys on the block and you say, oh, I can't hang out with you now, because y'all getting ready to do something I'm not allowed to do. Or the Shabbat coming in, y'all getting ready to go into something and I got to observe the Shabbat. Or you getting ready to eat over here and I'm not going to eat that. I said, I can catch y'all later. So when you start, the more godly you get, don't you know, the more people you tend to isolate yourself from. And not that you don't want to be with them, but you want to be more with the Creator. And therefore, since you want to be more with the Creator, and you can't right now pull them to that side, you say, look, I don't want to cause a problem for you being around you. Because, one of the things I find sometimes, when I go visit some people I know from years, house, and they say, well, you want to eat? I said, oh, I'm good. You got something to drink, maybe I grab something to drink. You got a can of soda or something like that, or water. But they every time you come here, you don't ever want to eat anything. Well, I ate before I got here, and most times that be true. I ate before I got there, or I got a big meal waiting for me when I'm getting where I'm going. So people might feel a way behind that, but those that really understand and respect your lifestyle, they'll say, oh, I know you ain't gonna eat that and everything like that. So, I'm trying to make it comfortable as possible. But the more godly you get, the more you tend to offend some people that might not want to be on that level yet. Let's go ahead, pick up from the 9th.
Verse 8, and it reads, all that hate me whisper together against me. Against me do they devise my hurt. An evil thing cleaveth fast unto him. And now that he lieth, he shall rise up no more. Yeah, my own familiar friend in whom I trusted, who did eat of my bread, have lifted up his heel against me. But thou,
one of the things is that when you fed people, look out for people, and they turn against you, that is like a real serious stab. That hurt you. The ones that can hurt you the most are the ones you feel closest to. Because you let your guard down.
That's right.
And David himself experienced this. Yaakov had many disappointments in life. And sometimes it came within his own household, but the people changed eventually. But he had a lot of different disappointments in his life. David himself, who's a man after God's own heart, had many setbacks and trials and tribulation. Just like Yaakov had to flee a lot of part of his life, running from this and running from that. David spent a good part of his years running from different people. Saul, and then his son, after he's a king. So David, and he calls himself hiding. And when he hiding, the servants of Saul can't find him, but all those that had problems with Saul was able to find where you hanging out at. Now that's something. You running from Saul, you're a fugitive, and the killers can't find you, But all the poor people could find out, you right over here. I need you to come over here now. I got a problem too. That's something. But let's read a little bit further.
Verse 11. But thou, Yahweh, be gracious unto me and raise me up, that I may that I may requite them. By this I know that thou delightest in me, that my enemies doth not triumph over me. And as for me, thou upholdest me because of mine integrity, and setteth me before thy face forever.
The word for integrity, that's a good word, betun. You know, but some of the word to time, betun, therefore the word integrity. You know, it's like being the word time for being wholehearted. You know, and you know that word what you say about Jacob, one of the things they talk about Noah and stuff like that. So integrity is a good translation for that. You know, and the thing is that I might slip up, but I got a certain amount of integrity and mannerism that I know how to get straight. I know when I'm wrong. Some people don't know when they're wrong, and they be strong when they're wrong. You know, and David talking about his integrity, even in the situation that he in. So no matter how low you fall, you know, no matter what your condition, if you have good integrity, Job has said that when he was going through his trials and tribulation. And one of the things I always say about considering the book of Job is that, and I can't say it enough, is that people focus on the problem instead of focusing on the creator. You know, and that was the difference. And in Job's whole encounter, it was a dialogue about why this happened to certain people and why that happened to certain people. But no dialogue about, let me pray to God. And yet he offered up to God for his sons, lest they curse God in their heart. So you find that kind of, you know, bizarre through the whole book of Job, that they're discussing issues of righteousness and punishment and all that kind of stuff. And yet when no one at the time say, well, are you praying to God to see if you can get out of this? Do you need to pray to God to see if you're going to have mercy on you? None of that, you know, you don't see that in the thing of Job in the early part, when he's going through all them trials and tribulations. And his last verse,
verse 14 reads, Blessed be Yehovah, the God of Yisrael, from everlasting to everlasting. Amen and amen.
All right, in other words, right then and there. The last verse is, I consider the power verse, you know, because first of all, it's blessing the God of Israel. They didn't say, you know, this one of the few times they didn't say, blessed be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It said, blessed be the God of Israel. You know, that's what they say. You know, and then, so we say, Baruch Hashem, you know, Yisrael, you know, pretty much that, you know, in the jargon they do today. And then from everlasting to everlasting, this is the only time you find that phrase, Amen, where Amen. A double affirmative and strength, which means so be it. And Amen comes from the word truth. You know, the ultimate truth is knowing that God can save anybody that he wants to save. You know, so no matter what your condition is, no matter what your situation is, you know, we gotta keep, not only faith in the Creator, but we gotta hope in the Creator, and know of a surety that, you know, he be there to deliver us if we're worthy. And with that, I hope you got something out of what I said. I know it's pretty long, this trip, and any mistakes been my own. And like I said, as we close the book, you know, we're going to the next book of Shemot, names that we gotta consider, you know, what's there to be strengthened about. And then, you know, and that means that no matter in the worst of times, you got to strengthen yourself. A sick man strengthen himself. So there's no reason why we as people cannot, you know, empower ourselves with the right formula. But that's a Shalom Aleichem and an early Shabbat Shalom.
Hallelujah. Torah by Nasik. Shalom to you and early Shabbat Shalom to everyone out there. So also once again reiterating condolences out to the family of Chief Eleazar. And may the Most High God bless us all. Shalom, shalom. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.